Hi, so I am just having some, I don't know what this is. Yeah, it is rooibos red tea with hibiscus, and hibiscus is like a flower and it is really good. And this is actually caffeine-free tea, so that's really good. I'm trying to get myself prepared for Egypt because I'm gonna go there probably next week, so therefore red tea is kind of, it's a good thing. Mm. But I wanted to actually just share some thoughts that I have, because some people, they think that because I'm studying health, that I love the way that health is understood as a concept, and also the way that the society sort of is dealing with health. And that is not really the truth. I'm not really so bound into the structures of how health is sort of dealt with and understood, and how disease is sort of made into something that is understood to be part of the human body and nothing more than that. I don't really like that concept because I think it's very restrictive, because as you know that, in the whole medicine and the field of medicine, you're sort of looking at symptoms. You have the doctor who is the supervisor and very like influential type of person, dominating and having this sort of power position to make decisions about people's life, essentially. And looking at these, observing people, and like using technological equipments to get information about the biological body and the mind and all these things about the person, and then like arranging these symptoms in a chronological sequence, and then saying, okay, this is this, like classifying, categorizing those chronological order of symptoms into a disease. And what that makes at the end is that you have almost more diseases than what you actually have people who are said to be in a good health. Because what does it mean even to be in a good health? This is something I have studied, like health, but it's still like you don't know what is good health, because you're going to get different answers. And some people, there is these World Health Organization has sort of made some definition. Okay, they have made a definition about this is what good health status is considered to be, and they have sort of connected to being a productive person, and be able to move your limbs or whatever. But it's not really, that is one way of describing health, because honestly, most things that we understand, like what I'm saying now, I'm sort of using the language that I know, and I'm sort of applying things that I know based on this, contemporary timing. I don't know what someone else is thinking, because I have not been inside someone else's brain. And also it's like I don't know what someone else is going to think in the future, or essentially what someone else thought in the past, and what has meaning for people in different contemporary timings. I don't know that. uh, and also it's like I just feel like with health, it's so like it's a very like diffuse concept, because you can sort of refer to it in so many different ways. And also when it concerning like knowledge, how we're using knowledge, like I actually now during the spring, I had this question in my mind. I was thinking, because I was reading some old texts, from like the 1200th century, and they were like, the author to those texts were actually like, he had this question about, his name is Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. He had this question about how can you know for sure that something is the actual knowledge. And because now we have this whole system called science, and some people say that I only believe science and nothing else. And I think that is also a restriction, you know, to say that you only believe in science, you know, because science, it has been around for not so long, you know. Humanity or whatever has been around for longer, you know. And also like science, it's something that is still expanding, you know. We don't know everything, you know. Some people say that science is a method, you know, of sort of explaining the world or whatever, but when you're looking at how these methods that are used are sort of shaped and structured and, you know, all these things, there is like not one single method for science, you know. It depends on what you want to study and learn something about and say something about, you know. And also whatever you will find, it's not going to be essentially the absolute knowledge, you know. If you're going to look at something similar in like even in the next hour, you know, something is going to be changed, you know. So it's very hard to actually capture anything and say anything about anything, you know, like in a really like strict way, you know, and say that this is the absolute truth and whatever. So, and because I don't think that my brain and like all people's brain together is going to be so skilled that it will understand exactly everything, you know. And therefore I feel like what we know with science is just, it has its limitations, you know. So I don't believe everything in science. I believe that science is a system to sort of make some sense about the reality, but it's not everything, you know, not at all, you know. And obviously, because science and all these things, it is used, you know, to sort of legitimate different professions, and, you know, it is used to build and construct societies and all these things. But it's not like some people say, oh, but science, that was a progress in the history, you know, and everything that is happening, it is a form of progress, you know. But it's just a way of sort of going about and living, and the way you're doing stuff, you know. Because for example, let's say I'm in Sweden, you know, and people say, oh, it's such a industrialized country, and it's such like equal gender equal country or whatever, you know. Oh, and there it's so peaceful, you know, and all these things. But everything is like, you know, a result by different circumstances, you know. It doesn't mean there has been a progress, you know. It's just the way that things have sort of come about in a chronological order and sort of shaped the present moment, you know. So it's not like progress actually have occurred, because if there was something called progress, you would need to have like a very long moment, you know. Because now we have like these one moment, and then there is the next moment, you know. But it's not really like, you know, progress, because for example, what you can achieve within one lifetime is restricted to your lifespan, you know. And some people say, okay, but because we have, you know, generations the following, you can sort of have progress throughout generations. But I don't think that's really what's happening, you know, to be fairly honest, because you don't know if something is going to happen, you know. Maybe there is some big catastrophe that makes some information that was in the previous generation not proceed to the next generation, and then the only progress that would be possible would be what has happened within some other generation's lifespan. And also because, I mean, like now, if you looking at the biological sort of constructions of the human body and all the things that are sort of put on us in our daily life, like we have these you know, Wi-Fi signals going through the body, all these, I don't know, chemicals, pollutions and everything. I think that for some generations ahead, it's going to you know, the biological material is not really, you know, being as good as it potentially was in a past generation. And I think they have actually proven that the pollutions from, like, you know, cars and stuff, when you are inhaling that, it is actually affecting the brain and the way that you are able to function. So it is not the greatest in the long run, but also because, you know, you can take you know, energy that you have like available, you know, you can sort of decide what to do with it, you know. So for example, when they have done some industrializing in some parts and stuff, they have sort of drawn a lot of energy to that place, like people, resources, and use those to build something there, you know. And they had that energy has come from somewhere else, you know, and sort of gone to one place and sort of functioning in that place and so forth. But that is not either progress, you know, because it is just energy, the flow of energy from one place to another, and sort of keeping a lot of energy in one place in order to build something, you know, like massive or whatever. But it's not like the ultimate, you know, concept of progress, because if, I don't know, for me, I feel like progress, it should be like something revolutionary, you know, something that is completely changing a lot of things, you know. There might have been some, you know, stuff that could be considered progress, but at the end of the day, I don't really know how either to prove there is any progress, you know. What are you going to compare this universe with, you know? You are not going to go outside this universe, so you cannot really compare progress in any other setting. I don't know, you know. So, and also like knowledge, I don't know, it's really, I mean, the stuff that you're learning, for example, in the university, it is, you're reading someone else's word, you know, someone else has done some research and tried to, you know, make sense of their reality. They have been, if there are multiply scientists who've been talking and trying to make some sense of stuff and putting together things in some language using letters and symbols and stuff and explaining something in a like written format, that is just one way of expressing it, you know. And also I think that it is a form of, you know, like social product at the end of the day, whatever you find. And it is not saying anything about how much knowledge there would be in total, you know. And also when you go into one field within the university, you are restricting yourself to that field, and you, even if everything is like, you know, like a whole, you are just taking a little focus on that big picture. And also because, as I said, we don't know everything. Even the philosophy of science is not like a solid mass of like this is it, you know. And if you have built science on something that is not the absolute how it is, then science itself, the methods you're using in science, is not either going to be the ultimate way of, you know, sort of getting information or whatever, you know. And also, do you need all information, you know? There is, you know, some things in science, like for example, this autumn I'm going to do one course about yoga, and it is from the scientific perspective that you're taking on and trying to understand and explain yoga. But yoga has been around since 2000 years back, even before 2000 years, you know, because probably it was a system, it was like considered established as a system of something, you know, or not as a system, it was just a way of, you know, conceptualizing whatever the human experience, you know. But so it must have been like constructed even before 2000 years, you know. But you know, now when I will be studying yoga, for example, in this scientific perspective, you know, it's not like that I am, you know, doing a progress because I'm studying it in a scientific way, you know, because I'm probably the most stupid person who studies something, you know, and thinking I will find something new about it, because it was around since 2000 years, you know. If I would be practicing yoga, you know, myself, I would have probably more like understanding of it, you know, because I have been doing it, you know, myself, and gained some insights through experience as well, you know. So I just want to say that knowledge, I don't know where the border for knowledge is. I don't know if it's a round thing, I don't know if it has any shape, I don't know what the depth is, I don't know anything about knowledge, you know, but I'm saying that I'm gaining knowledge, but in fact I'm not gaining anything, you know. I'm just trying to sort of, you know, by taking in all this information, making sense by something that I don't know so much about, but I'm making sense by it by using this information that is available through the science field. And it is other people's words that has been gathered over some past generations, and it is forming a system like of how we have the society today, and the institutions and stuff, but it's just like one way of doing it, it's not like the ultimate way or anything, because I don't know, I don't have anything to compare it with, what are you going to compare science with? This is a problem. Some people say that, trying to compare science with religion or something, but how are you going to compare it, to be fairly honest? The problem for us, when we have this society and we are trained to function in this society, is that we cannot see from outside and into the society. We don't understand how how we can define health as something different. How can we achieve health from a different angle if we are not having the medical institution, Or how can we gain education if we don't have a school? Would there be a better option? We don't have that. People are very they just are able to function within the society. And if something in the society would be, something happens and there's not all these institutions, then people wouldn't know what to do, And I think that is a danger, because if you don't know what to do, if you cannot call the doctor and say I'm getting a diagnosis or whatever, or if you cannot get your education, if you're not able to reach to the school, or if you feel you are deprived because you cannot work as a teacher or something, I mean, all these things, it's just because we are so trained or programmed to function within a specific society, but at the same time it is only one alternative of a society, So I think that to be more innovative, you have to sort of understand at what point are you in, like what are the alternatives? There are probably more alternatives than if you're looking at all the numbers of stars in the in the universe, you would probably see that, okay, there is quite a few options, but we don't understand it in that way, because as I said, it's so limited, the time span like for a human existence, so you try to make something last over generations, and that is very hard actually, because let me take an example. Like, people are still today discussing how was these pyramids, like they were constructed like maybe 6,000, 4,000 years ago, and people don't know how exactly and why they were constructed, and yet there has been generations after that, so you would think that, okay, well, if these humongous buildings were constructed, how can no one know exactly why they were constructed or how they were, how were these humongous buildings constructed, and there seemed to be like, okay, some generations they forgot about it, or something happened and all of a sudden no one knew anything, and then another generation is looking back and is sort of, okay, applying their kind of perspective on something that they have not experienced, but they're looking back and they are thinking, okay, what would we like to explain this with? What is benefiting our time and society now? So everything becomes very like socially constructed, depending on where you actually are looking back at something that you have not even experienced. So yeah, that's what I want to say about it, because I feel like some people are like, oh, okay, so you study health, okay, so you really like this whole like way that's, health is like the medical system and like the health and welfare and blah blah blah. I'm like, I am not really, I don't really think that this is the ultimate kind of construction. I just think this is one way of doing something, and I see that there is so many problems in how it is functioning, but I don't have solutions. I'm probably not within my lifetime even going to have a thought about the solution, you know. And that's just to have that in mind, that when you're studying and stuff, you know, or reading about something, is that it's very hard to actually get to the essence and know that, okay, this is knowledge. You know, this is knowledge that if I say this now, it's going to be valid like 500 years in time. Very hard, you know, to do that, you know, because it might just all of a sudden is overthrown by something else, you know. There has been science and knowledge that has all of a sudden just been wiped off the paper, you know, because something else proved it to be wrong, you know. And this is always something that can happen. Like health, the concept that I'm talking about, health, all of a sudden there might be some completely different understanding of health, and then what I know might just be wiped out, and then it would not be a knowledge that is longer, you know, like good to know, you know, because it wouldn't have any function in the society. So it's just also about what knowledge is possible to utilize in a specific society and contemporary timing, you know, because not all knowledge is, if you're looking at some knowledge and how people viewed certain things in another perspective, in another timing or another context or whatever, it's not going to be exactly the same as from where I am and how I think about stuff, and you know. And yeah, so I'm gonna end here